Hello ladies and gentlemen. Today we're going to be answering the questions from the Q&A, which, I asked you to post some questions and it seems like a lot of you have some very interesting ones, so I'm gonna do them all, just because I think that's the right thing to do. There's about 30 of them, including some from the Discord, so yeah, let's get into them. So Ryan Davis asks, do you think Gaijin will fix any of the US armor? It's a broad question, and the only real issues that I've seen with anything that is US related is the Super Pershing. The Super Pershing definitely has some issues with its armor, the fact that it doesn't really work properly in its spaced areas. And hopefully, with time, this will be fixed. It seems like they've done something to it, making the armor a little bit better. But overall, one thing that I think could fix armor in a very large way is getting rid of the percentage chances. So, every piece of armor in the game has like a percentage chance on it, depending on the tank, depending on the type of armor, all of this stuff. And it basically means that even if you don't have the penetration, you can sometimes go through anyway, and to me that's incredibly annoying, because it takes away the realistic aspect of the game, and it also means that there's a probability or a chance that a round can go through which really shouldn't. Now, they've definitely reduced this over the years. I would just like it to be completely gone from the game, because it's an excuse that can be trotted out a lot from people. They talk about it's there for balance and stuff like that, but I'd rather it just wasn't a factor. I'd rather the stats would equal what we see in game, and that's basically it. Next question is from Rudolph Antler, which, if that's your actual name, that's a pretty sick name. Hey, TC, question. Why is the Japanese SPRG with 2 barrels and the American Ontos with 6 barrels at the same BR? One has a closed structure while the other doesn't. It is supposed to be because the Japanese is faster, but if you try out, there's zero difference. Fuck this question. Better question. Why does Failgin totally hate Japan, over tier 90% of rank 1 and 60% of rank 4? And not implementing nearly as many prototypes in Japan than in Russia? So I'm going to answer both. I think that's the right thing to do. So, from my ideas, the reason why the 2 machines are at the same BR is because they both have the one-shot capability to them. The idea is, if you pen both rounds, it should pretty much one-shot anything that you go up against. The Ontos is also quite a bit larger than the SPRG, and also it is very much easier to see because of the way it is made. The speed, in my opinion, doesn't really come into it. It's also a factor of the fact of the current BR system, where you do need to have vehicles at specific BRs which are not as competitive as some of their counterparts, and this is basically down to the fact that where the tiers are limited, and you can't have a specific BR for every machine. If it was my opinion of it, I would drop the Japanese SPRG, because its combat effectiveness isn't that good. But then you have to build a lineup around it as well. I don't think it is a first machine that you use, same with the Ontos, unless you're trying to go for that counter-attacking kill that I've talked about before. When we talk about the Ontos as well, there is definitely something dodgy going on with this. The front plate of it, I've seen a lot of rounds get eaten by the fuel tank on the front, and I think this is a bug with it. So once that is fixed, and you see the Ontos just getting one shot just as you would on the Japanese SPRG, I think it is much easier to see them both as equal machines. The second question, over-tiering 90% of rank 1, I feel like that's just a common trend of all nations. The reason for this is there are more people playing like rank 2, rank 3 than there are rank 1, so therefore you get up tiered a hell of a lot of the time. If you've ever played biplanes in realistic, you'll see this too. you'll see the fact that you get up-tiered pretty much regularly. Just like if you play top tier, you're going to get down-tiered much more than playing at the 9-0 bracket. There is also an issue with Japan where a lot of their vehicles you can't make a great lineup around. So therefore, you may have one decent tank, and, you know, it may seem pretty good, but because you don't have the backup, it doesn't feel great. And why do they hate them when it comes to prototypes? The biggest issue with prototypes with the Japanese is information on them. And I think one of the questions we're going to talk about later on has this exact thing as well. But the Ho-Ri prototype is a classic example of this. We don't know a lot about it. We can't get access to the information on it because the majority is randomly classified. The Americans, when they went over there, didn't really find any, or at least I can't find any pictures or any notes by any American who was over there, whereas all of the other vehicles, which were kind of prototypey, they do have information on, so therefore that makes it harder to implement them in the game, and also, Russia's just been out for longer, so its tree's going to be more stacked. We saw with the Japanese aircraft tree that it took them a while to start implementing a lot of aircraft. It was pretty much bare bones compared to the rest of the trees, and over time they have added more and more and more, especially to rank 4, so therefore I'm pretty sure that'll happen in tanks as well. There's just a lot more limited prototypes, especially since Russia just made an absolute ton of objects, which are basically prototypes from the Russian side. So hopefully we see more of them. I'm always skeptical of just adding in prototypes, especially Japanese ones, because of the information that we don't have on them, and also because the majority of them were not working or they were just wooden mock-ups. So hopefully they don't get added, but you know, that's just my opinion. Moving on, we have Janissary. Hi, I hope you feel better now and got rid of the flu. I do got a question. Maybe you'd like to tell us a bit about yourself. Do you work or study or even married maybe? Are you a Canadian who, thoughts? Nah, it's too cold for me out here. I think I go to Europe. So, the flu's still here. It's definitely a lot better. You can probably tell in my voice, but, you know, still coughing every once in a while. I work, but I did also study. So I studied, I have 2 degrees. I have a degree in analytical chemistry and a degree in theoretical physics, with a minor in mathematics. As a job, I teach. I don't want to go into any more information about that, just in case, you know, somebody tries to find me, because there are a lot of laws around, you know, stuff like that, and yeah, I don't really want to get into that, but yeah, I teach, basically. I am married. If you've seen any of the Outlast videos, you'll see my wife in a lot of them as a co-commentary pair. She's called Kit, or Kirsten, and we've been married for about 3 years now, and I will always say it was the best decision I've ever made. She makes me incredibly happy, and, you know, there's some fights here and there, but that's basically the same with everyone. The one thing I love is coming home and knowing that I have her there, and we can just chat about stuff, so yeah, I'm really enjoying that aspect of it. It's really nice. I'm not Canadian. I'm British by trade, and I moved here for university, and I stay here because of my wife and because of my work. Moving on to the next one, we have Shimakaze-chan, which is a wonderful name to say, and also I see your comments a lot on War Thunder Live, so, you know, thanks for them, and also I believe you also make videos, which I've enjoyed. You made that Ho-Ri one, right, which was kind of fun. Any opinion on the Ho-Ri production? What do you think about Japan's tank movage, or, you know, tanks moved, the Type 87 and 74 moving to rank 6 without any proper rank 6 tank for Japan? So the Ho-Ri production seems pretty good. I've come up against it quite a lot, but it all depends on if it gets up-tiered or not. Right now, a lot of 6.7s are getting dragged into 7.3 games, and they're not too effective, because their armor carts stand up. The Tiger 2H is running into this issue, the Hori production, the T29, stuff like that. But if it gets a battle at its BR, it feels really quite hard not to crack. The opinions that Tiger Frost expressed in the video I did with the Hori prototype, the premium one, is very close to my own, and the production is basically just a better version with that, with a slightly higher BR. But I really think it's a fun tank to use. Unfortunately, it isn't getting a research decrease in the coming updates, where a lot of stuff is getting a research reduce, but I think it's fun. It does run into the general issue of Japanese tanks, where making a lineup around it is not the best, but it's still good enough. I don't know why they moved the Type 87 and 74 to rank 6. I did a video talking about possible rank 6 Japanese tanks, and to be honest, there isn't really any. There is that supposed one of the 74 or the 87, I can't remember, which had ERA on it, but I can't find any information on it, and only one picture, which literally doesn't look real. It looks like it's out of a game. So I need more information on that. I did talk about possible vehicles they could add at rank 6, but it's incredibly scarce. And for now, moving them up to rank 6, I mean, it brings them more in line with some other vehicles that they've put in rank 6 for the time being. And since they haven't really changed the BRs, I mean, it doesn't really affect them that much. The next question is from Noor Rahman. It says, "Hi, my question is, will they add universal talismans in war bonds?" Now this question could actually have like a whole video by itself. It's a really interesting one, because we obviously have universal backups, but universal talismans is a really interesting idea, being able to pick what you want to put a talisman on. But this would also mean that they would have to be crazy expensive. But I don't see why not. Like, make them a rank 5 in the shop, or rank 3, or whatever the top tier is. I believe it's rank 5. Make them cost a lot, and why not? It means that if people don't want to go for the gift vehicles, or they already have them, give them something else to go for, and I think universal talismans would be a good idea. It does mean you could put them on any tank, so maybe a stipulation would be rank 1 to 4 or rank 1 to 5, or you could even make 2. You could make a universal talisman for rank 1 to 3, and a universal talisman for rank 4 to 6, and one of them is obviously harder to get than the other. I think that could be another way you do it, but I really like the idea. I think it's a nice little addition. They would be incredibly expensive, but I think that's fine. This is from Dalaru68. He says, "Enjoy your videos." Well, thank you, Dalaru. And also, been playing War Thunder Arcade for 15 months. Want to play realistic, but got a PS4, and it takes a lot of figuring out to fly planes and tanks. So I just do tanks. Can I just play tanks on their own? Cheers. In realistic, you can just play tanks on your own. It's generally a good idea to have a plane as well. Just for that added combat if you need to bring it in, but you don't have to. It's not something you have to do. You can just use tanks if you want, and I don't think it hampers the team at all if you do want to just bring tanks, especially if you throw an SPAA in your lineup. So yeah, you can just use tanks if you want, and I think it's completely fine. Wezha says, "Just how European are you, and how much Canadian?" I was born and bred in England, in Yorkshire, so from that sense I'm incredibly European. I moved out here when I was 17 to 18, basically just after my 18th birthday, and I've been here for 6 or 7 years now, so I'm pretty much, I mean, I have residency here, but my citizenship is British, so European. And since I was born and bred in Europe, I feel like I'm more European than Canadian right now. The White Wolf. Do you think the IS-6 is balanced at 7.3? Or should the IS-6 or some of the vehicles around it be raised or lowered in BR? The issue with the BR stuff that we saw, so the IS-6 used to be at 6.7, or was it at 7.0? I can't remember, whichever one. What you found is that a lot of matches were dictated by the IS-6. So whatever BR the IS-6 would be at, matches happened around it, so you had to kind of combat that. We pretty much have the same issue now around these 6.7 premiums and the 7.3 IS-6. So if you are in the BR range of 7.3, you're pretty much, I'd say 90% of the time, going to get into 7.3 matches because of that IS-6. So even if you put it lower, you're still going to face 6.7 vehicles constantly. The one difference is that now it can't face stuff like 5.7 vehicles or 6.0 vehicles like the T25, and I think that's a hell of a lot better. I think it's fine at 7.3. I would see it as an equal to the IS-3, and putting them at the same BR makes sense. I don't think it's equal to the IS-4M, but I don't think it's also equal to the IS-2 Mod 44, so putting it where it is I think works out. It definitely has issues with matchmaking, but that's not the fault of the vehicle, that's just the fault of... I did a video on it talking about the human element of matchmaking, and that's pretty much it. Like, people wanting to play the most popular vehicles because they're the best, and therefore BR's being dictated by that. So wherever you put it, it's going to have this issue, and hopefully in the future we have a matchmaking system which tries to negate that, but to be honest, it seems impossible. Like, even in MOBAs, which probably have the best matchmaking system, there is still meta picks, there's still all of this, so I feel like it's just an impossible thing to negate. Next we have Billy Leroy. He says, why does the American Spid have a better climb race than the Griffin Spids? The Mark 24 is at 24 meters per second, and the US has 31. Thanks, Billy. It's basically, if I'm going to talk about it from a War Thunder point of view, it's basically because of weight. The Griffin Spid is incredibly heavy, basically because of the Griffin engine and also the enhanced airframe that they had to put around it. If you just look at the model of the US Spit with its Merlin engine, you realize it's a lot smaller and it's a lot lighter. It also has lighter guns on it. So from that point of view, that's why it climbs better. It's also why the Mark 24 dives better, and it's also why the Mark 24 handles better at speed because of its enhanced airframe. So that's pretty much why. It's lighter, and the power-to-weight ratio is slightly better for the lighter vehicle than it is for the Mark 24. That doesn't mean that the Mark 24 is worse than it just means the Mark 24 is better at specific things. The US Spit has always been a bit of an interesting machine. There was always calls back in the day that it had one of the older Spitfire flight models compared to when they updated the other Spitfires for the reason why it could climb so much, and also that it was the wrong Spitfire. I think Bowtime talked about it in a video. He basically said that it was either the Americans used the LF Mark 9 or they used the F Mark 9, and in War Thunder it is the wrong Spitfire, like they used the other one. So yeah, there's that as well. So it's always been a bit contentious with the US Spit, and yeah, but anyway, that's why it has a better climb rate. Asmatexo, or Akmatexo. I see that there are no player replay video commentaries. Why is that? Are you only focusing on new War Thunder content? The replays, I have about 70 of them saved, and everyone that gets sent gets, recorded and put on a hard drive. And the way I used them in the past, and I think the way I use them going forward, is just basically using it as if I don't have anything to do that day, I'll stick up a replay. The reason why there hasn't been a lot of replays recently is because I've always had an idea, or I've always had something to talk about in War Thunder. With how close 171 and 173 has been, and also 175 already on the horizon with, Italian tanks being added to the game, and also talk about new ground forces maps, maybe based around Paris or something. Basically, there's always a bunch of new content, as you said, to talk about. And I do like doing the dev server stuff and talking about new content. I also like doing the replay stuff, but I see it more as filler content compared to talking about aspects of the game or doing like this new War Thunder Talk series, which I'm really into. So they will come back, and it's basically when there's either a lull in what's going on, or, to be honest, I just feel like doing them. Right now, I haven't really felt like doing them. Like, it's pretty much as simple as that. I only really have time to put up one War Thunder video and one other video a day, so I can't do a replay and also another video as well. So, yeah, simple as that, really. When there's a lull, you'll see some stuff. This is from Zach Fua. Hey, TEC. Do you think the cloud mechanics should be reworked? This is because sometimes I can be looking straight at an enemy, but they are not highlighted until about 0.2 kilometers away. Also, when the camera zooms in a cloud, the enemy aircraft seems to disappear. Another question I have is that, do you have any problems maneuvering in fighter aircraft with high lift wings like the Hurricane, as I have been practicing in it with the mission editor, and I have difficulty putting my nose down to get on target. Also, there's a bit of swaying in realistic which throws off my aim. Any tips? Sorry to bother you so much. Don't worry about bothering me. I'm here to be bothered. Like, simple as that. Whether it's on here, on YouTube, whether it's on Discord, bother me all the time. A lot of people do, so it is how it is. You don't have to worry about it. The cloud mechanics are weird. I feel like sometimes I can see fighters from like 10 or maybe 5k away through clouds, and I just can beeline to them and I can just see them as this black blob inside a cloud. And that means I can sneak up on them, and then as he says, like from 0.2 or 0.4 away, they get highlighted, and I feel like that's really not good. And it happens to me as well. You just get swarmed by like two fighters who've seen you from miles away and you can't see them. And I definitely agree, something has to be done about this. A revisiting to how clouds work would be a very good idea. I think it might also be linked to some crew skills, like maybe awareness or the keen vision one. But I feel like it's still not a good idea to do, because it can give an inherent advantage to a player where the other one doesn't have that advantage. And it can be negated really easily just by making it so maybe the clouds, you can't see, aircraft through clouds, simple as that. It is very odd that it happens. I'm wondering if it's either a bug. I feel like if it was a bug, it would have been fixed. So I may actually ask some guys from Gaijin their opinions on it, or if they know about it, because it is definitely an issue. The high lift wings. The Hurricane is one of my favorite vehicles in the game. I really enjoy it. So, the best way to do it is to always roll over. I've never felt like pushing an elevator down to get your nose on target is a very good way of doing anything. And the majority of planes have decent roll rates, depending on what speed you're at. And the Hurricane is one of them. At low speeds or even high speeds, it doesn't take a long time to roll over your plane, so you definitely should just roll over. You should roll over the plane instead of just trying to use the elevator to go down, because generally it just doesn't work. It just the same issues on the VB. If you push the VB nose down, it just doesn't want to do it, so you've got to roll over the plane instead. And use the elevator to push it upwards and around instead of pushing, just straight down.